Hey guys, welcome back. Alright, so when we last left off, we just had the head made, kind of just the base, without the face. So, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right back in. The reason I separated these out is because we're going to approach the eyes specifically just a little bit different than the rest. So, just so you'll be able to find this video later if you need it. But anyway, just going to go ahead and get started like we were. Going over to our raster layer to just make our line work real quick. I'm going to go ahead and start with the eyes. So, just draw them out. I might be undoing quite a bit for this one just because I want the line work to be kind of specific with like the sensitivity and everything. Alright, doesn't look too bad. And you can approach this either way. You could make these elements separate for each eye. Depending on how much eye animation you're doing. I don't know. It depends on how you want to look at it. If you hand animate the eyes, which you're probably going to have to do at one point or another with a mixed rig, you'll have to think of the trade-off. If you have both eyes on one layer, then you're going to have to copy and paste previous layers just to make sure that it doesn't change if you're only planning on changing one eye. But if you're changing both eyes simultaneously, it can be a lot easier to access both of them at one point, rather than having to select them on a column and individually animate them. So, your choice, which one you think would be more beneficial. If your character is going to be doing a lot of like eye twitching or winking, then maybe you'll want to have them separate, but if they're mostly just going to be like blinking and probably repeating the same actions on both sides for the most part, then you'll probably be fine just combining them. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. And I'm just doing the line work on this. This is going to be its own layer. So it's ready to be converted into vectors. Just do that real quick. Oops. See the preview real quick, see if I'm satisfied. I mean, it could be better, honestly. But I'm not going to stress over it. And then I get this pop-up. If you get a pop-up like this, I would say that probably what you'd want to do is overwrite the existing file with the new one. Just because, this is the one that you want to use. The reason I'm getting this particular pop-up is because I was running through and practicing the particular things I'm covering in this tutorial, so I don't shoot in the dark. So I've already made a lot of the file locations already, so that's why it's doing that. But I'm just going to overwrite it because, yeah, I don't need the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this up and rename it. And I'll just name this eyes. And I'll put it in front of the head because that's where it needs to be. And then I'll go ahead and rename this level as eyes. Cool. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is do the whites of the eyes here. So, actually for this one, I'm going to take this and drag it back down to the 7th frame so that we can just see it. Because I'm going to be drawing directly behind it and I don't want it to bleed over the edge or anything. So, this is going to be white. So I'm just going to make a new palette. And color 0 isn't white, remember that. So don't use color 0, you're going to have to make a new white. And pretty much what I'm just going to do is just sort of create the edges. Since with this particular drawing style, there's not an outline going around the entire eye, I kind of have to do it this way. And you'll see the reason why I'm making these separate rather than having the eye layer with the color. Sort of scan over it, see if it looks okay to you. But I think it looks alright. So I'm going to go ahead and vectorize this. And you're not going to see anything because it's white. Just like that. Now I convert. And then again, overwrite. No big deal. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and drag this up. And I'm just going to name this I underscore white. Maybe get rid of that S. That's kind of weird. I whites. And then rename this by going into level settings and just name it the same thing. Then I'm going to go ahead and drag this back up to 1 because that's where I want it to be. And I'm going to move this column to be behind the eyes. So now you can see the eye whites are behind and then the line work is in front. Alright, pretty cool. Now, this is where it gets maybe just a little bit weird. Going back into our raster layer, I'm going to draw the pupils. And even though I made the eye whites and the line work for the eyes together on their own layers, I'm not going to make these on their own layers, just so that they can be moved individually. Because if they were together, then moving them on with the edit tool would just link them together. And sometimes you want a little bit more subtle movement. You don't want them to be moving in the same location. And you wouldn't be able to make them go cross-eyed or anything like that, so it would be an extremely limiting rig to have it that way. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with this one. And you can use like a shape tool to get the circle. I'm kind of a fan of the slightly scraggly hand-drawn look, so that's just why I'm hand-drawing this. But if you want a more perfect circle, then by all means definitely use the circle tool. Alright, now I do want to color this one in, so I'm going to load up the project palette for the little girl, and I'm going to go ahead and copy the hair to make an eye color one. Color 5. I'll name this I. Oops, I pressed enter. Whoops. I. And then I think I'm actually going to lighten this up, make it a little hazily. That should be good for now. Oh, actually, I'm on the wrong layer. I need to vectorize this first. So I'm not going to drag it over to this raster layer. I don't need it there. Oh, I should be paying more attention to that. Alright, so disregard that. I mean, it's good that I made the palette in the, the studio palette. It's not a big deal, but convert it to vectors, then I color it in. Overwrite. Drag it up. Let's pull this out. And I'm going to put this behind the eye line work, but in front of the eye whites. And I'm just going to go ahead and name this pupil. Pupil underscore L, because it's the left one. Remember, stay consistent with these naming conventions. Level settings, pupil underscore L. Cool. Now, same thing. That was pretty good. I don't know why I undid that. But that'll work too. Just going to go ahead and fill that in. Alright. Convert to vectors. We're good. Overwrite. I'm going to go ahead and put R on the right side in the columns just to keep it a little bit more organized. Pupil underscore R. Alright. Now with it selected, I'm going to go ahead and control drag this up. So now I is part of the level palette. Now I'm just going to color it in. Do the same. Control, drag it up. I. Alright, so now it's colored in. And if you have it selected and on position, then you can move it around. And this is pretty much going to be the basis for rigging up the eyes. Now it looks a little bizarre because obviously it's like coming out of the head. So yeah, that's just a little bit of an issue, but easily solvable. So what I'm going to go do is open up the schematic for two reasons. The first is that we don't have the eyes rigged up the way we want them to be rigged up. Just like how the hair is connected to the skull, we want the eyes to be connected to the skull as well, because we want them to rotate with the head. So just like in the last video, I'm just going to pull these out and connect them to B. And pull these out and connect them to B as well. I'm just trying to look at a good way to maybe organize this. It'll just be fine in a stack like that. In this case, that's alright. Alright, so we can go back and test the rig real quick, just to make sure everything is working properly. Sort of push that out of the way. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Sort of. Just go to rotation on skull and see if everything follows, which it does. It's alright. Alright, so the rigging portion so far is done. But we still have the issue of the eyes coming out of the whites of the eyes, which is what we don't want. So if we go down here to the bottom corner of the schematic view, you can toggle the FX schematic. And boom, we have an entirely different setup, which is kind of, I mean, if you haven't seen this before, it might be a little strange, but just a quick rundown of what this is. This is a post-processing effect schematic. So, whereas this one is like a scene type schematic where you just have the physical elements of the scene set up in their hierarchy and accessing physical properties of it. This one is accessing the look or the final render. So these are all just here going into the X sheet. That's what they do by default. If you render it out, everything you see here in the main screen will show up in the final output. But we can do a little bit of I don't know if I want to call it advanced because this is actually really simple, but we can actually change the look of the final render. So what we're going to do is we're going to add effects. We're going to go to matte. And we're just going to select matte in. And what the matte in node does is it sort of works as a mask where it will take the visual information, any vectors in a layer and turn it into a mask. So, you know, like a Photoshop mask where it'll just sort of cut it off. Nothing is allowed to be shown outside of the area that is masked. So, if you kind of, if you are, you know, if you know about this kind of thing, then you're probably like, aha, we're going to make the eye whites a mask. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and find my eye whites, which would probably be eye ites. Unfortunately, it doesn't finish the whole thing out, so it can be a little hard to locate, but that's what it is. And we're going to drag this into the matte, because that's what we're going to use as the mask. So drag whatever you're going to use as the mask into the matte port of the InFX. And then what we're going to do is put, we're going to put the pupil L into the source. So now we have the eye whites acting as the matte and the pupil as the source of the matte. And we're going to need to do that to the right pupil as well. Pretty much the same thing. You can't have multiple things going into the source, so we're just going to have to make a separate one. Matte in. We're going to drag pupil.r into the source, and then eye whites into the matte. And like that, we have them going into the X sheet. So now it's only going to show this port, or it's only going to show this portion and cut off anything that is going outside of the white. However, we can actually view this by clicking the preview up here. We'll just click on it. So you can see that it's working. However, a little bit of another issue. Where's the white at? Well, as of now, the white is only being treated as a matte. When I dragged it up in, it disconnected from the X sheet automatically. What we want to do is kind of do a double render of this. One is going in to be a matte pass, and one is just going to be directly rendered the way it is seen. So all we have to do is just go to eye whites and just drag out another one back into the X sheet where it went. And then all of a sudden, it's corrected. It's good. Alright, so that was easy enough. A little bit different from the other parts, but still pretty easy. So we're kind of done with the schematic so far. And when you preview, and everything might look really, really pixelated just because your resolution is low. So what we can do is we can go to, you can go over to your X sheet view and just click output settings. Now mine were already set, but if you're using the default output settings, they're extremely low resolution. So I recommend setting it to 1920 by 1080, and it will auto lock. So when you put it to 1920, it'll probably put it to like 14 something. Just put it at a 16.9 aspect ratio. Type in 1920 and then type in 16-9 right here, and then you'll have it set to 1920 by 1080. And that'll clear up this image just a little bit because it's so pixely in the default settings that like you wouldn't even really be able to tell. I mean, like the eye whites would just be like 1 pixel, so really helps to clean that up because you're going to be going into the preview quite a bit if you have anything that's just sort of a post effect rather. But if we turn preview off, it still looks kind of funky. So, if we just select our eyes and, we can just do a quick pose of it real quick. Now she's like looking down. Preview. Ta-da! Not bad. Let's put it back where it was. Alright, so that was the, the funkiest part of the face. The rest will be very straightforward, so I'm just going to go ahead and come in here and make the nose. Whew. The really sensitive brush can give you some pretty cool strokes, but it's hard to control. Oh my god. That'll be good enough. Alright. Convert to vectors. Good. Overwrite. drag up, rename, nose. Level settings, also name it nose. Cool. We'll just put it in front of the head. I'm going to do the lips real quick. And for this particular drawing style, I'm just going to fill these lips in as just straight up black. So this will be a pretty easy one to work with. Maybe edit the appearance of it just a little bit, not follow the line work to a T. And then this sort of shadowy area under the bottom lip. Hope I'm not talking too quiet. I feel like I've been mumbling a little bit. Alright, cool. Convert to vectors. Whew. I'm not going to let that one slide. That was a little... Might come with an eraser and just sort of sharpen that up a little bit. Lips are an extremely expressive part. You really probably don't want to let them slide if something's wrong with them. Alright, after converting to vectors, I'll just name this mouth. Settings. Mouth. Put them in front of the head. We can just go to 1. Oops. That's not where they were supposed to go. Alright. And then, like I said, the eyes always look weird. It's hard to adjust to, so you probably just have to preview them. Alright, so it's not looking too bad, except it does look kind of weird to not have eyebrows, so let's go ahead and just put some eyebrows on it real quick. I think I'm going to make these separate, because it is handy to just sort of individually pose your eyebrows. You can get a lot of expression out of it. So I'm going to start with the left one, I guess. That doesn't look so bad. Alright, convert to vectors. Convert. Overwrite. Apply. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and just make the other one real quick before editing them, since I'm sort of already in the flow of it. Cool. Convert to vectors. Apply. Alright, so this is the left one. Go ahead and name this brow underscore L. Drag it up. Level settings. Brow underscore L. Fix that up. Drag this up. Brow underscore R. Right click, level settings. Brow underscore R. And now I'm just going to sort of drag them out. Again, just in front of the head. In this case, it doesn't really matter where they go. But I'm just going to, keep left and right on, at least relative to each other in the X sheet, just to keep it easier. And now when we preview, she's looking pretty good. Alright, but I have not set the pivots for any of the elements I've made yet, so I'm just going to run through real quick and do that. Take off preview mode, go to the edit tool, select center, and I have brow L selected, so I'm just going to drop a pivot right here, right sort of where it hinges. So now we can sort of get this sort of rotation action going on. Cool. Same with the other. Select brow R, go to center, set it there. Mouth isn't going to be doing a lot of rotation, but like I said, best to set it to a logical center anyway to keep it organized. Nose, same principle. Put it right there. Eye whites, I'll just drop it right in the center, maybe right about here. And then real quick go to the eye ink, not the pupils, but the like line art, and I'll just drop it up here. So they're both in the center, but one's above and one's below. Not because you need to do that for any particular reason, I just don't like overlapping center points. Alright, pupil L. Gonna center that right here. This one's not going to be doing a lot of rotation, but it is going to be doing movement. For the R, put it right there. So now we have the center points where we need them to be. Lastly, maybe not lastly, but I'm going to go ahead and go into the schematic view real quick. And we're still in the FX port. We don't need that right now. Same story. We're just going to take these from the table and put them right in here. Alright. And you can sort of organize this how you please. Like, if you want to make the eyes sort of in their own league and just sort of, and this could work. So here's the hair and the hair elements, the eye elements, and then the rest of the face elements. Just to keep it a little bit more organized. Not super important. Alright, so let's go ahead and test this rig so far. Rotation. Cool. So let's just kind of jack it up just a little bit, like not just edit only one thing. Pupil L, position, sort of looking down. Brow L, position. She's gonna be she's gonna be frowning a little bit. I mean, you know, it's frowning as far as I can do. You would honestly just have to draw in a new mouth for an actual frown, but let's see what kind of, if we can get another expression out of her. Alright, and you can see how easy that was to create an entirely different expression. Heck, you could even use the little hair balls as like an expression tool itself. When she gets sad, her hair gets really down. Now she just looks kind of disappointed. And then like when she gets excited, they perk up. I mean, possibilities with this kind of thing are endless. That just looks ridiculous. Alright, so I'm just going to Control Z this all the way back into its default position. which I think is right here. Yep. All right. One last thing. Actually, let's see what video time is at. Yeah, I can do this real quick. This is a pretty fast thing. The last video, the reason that I separated the hair, well, I mean, one of the major reasons I separated the hair was just for this particular style, I kind of like the eyebrows going behind the hair rather than in front of them. So making the skull and the hair separate was a smart way to do that, so it could be layered in front of the face. But I actually had something else planned for the hair, and that was to use the plastic tool on it. And the plastic tool is this little guy right up here. If you don't know what it is already, it's pretty much it's like a shape deformation tool. You put bones on a specific part of a mesh, and you can just sort of deform it by bending it. You could make a whole character using the plastic tool, but I don't recommend it. I only recommend the plastic tool for things that don't make a lot of extreme turns, because it can have a little bit of it can have rendering errors. Not to mention that I don't think that there's enough control with how you can create the like area of effect for the bones. You can't really edit the like envelopes of them as far as I can tell, so they're really best used for simple things, but it's still a really cool tool. And I'm going to go ahead and use it on the hair real quick. So I'm just going to go ahead and select hair scalp, which is what I want. And then this button here for the plastic tool. And then nothing really happens. But, and you can't really do anything. You see this sort of no button. But what you need to do to start using the plastic tool is create mesh with the column that you want to deform selected. So hair scalp. Make sure you do this on hair scalp. Create mesh. Alright, and then you see this weird little thing where it converts it into like triangulated polygons. You can go ahead and just sort of mess with this. I'm going to lower it as much as I can before I end up dividing these things. Alright, I divided it. Alright, that's looking good. I only have one sort of point right there. That'll work. Alright. And yeah, I got an overwrite message. I just chose the one that would overwrite it. Alright, so now you have this sort of mesh covering your hair. And now with the mode Build Skeleton, I'm just going to select the top to create my first point, the root. And then I'm just going to drag here for the second vertex. And these two will kind of be like irrelevant bones that I don't really use. And then I'm going to continue on from here, put a vertex here, and pretty much I'm just going to create a vertex at each turn of the hair, ending them there. Select the root again so I can make more from it. Stem out to about here just like before. Go here, 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 here. You can see what I mean, that I just sort of make them at each sort of sharp turn that I have set up for this particular drawing. Alright, and that's all I need to do. Just go ahead and turn, if you change the mode up here in the plastic tool to animate, you'll see the results. Now I can bend these hair curls. Alright, pretty cool. But you can sort of see that, like if you edit these ones up here, you're getting some weird bending at the top. Now, I mean, the ones that you're probably going to be editing on this particular model aren't going to be interfering with it too much. Actually, maybe just a little bit. But, I only really want these things to move. The top of the hair should probably remain pretty static. So what you can do is go up here into the mode and select Paint Rigid. I'm going to sort of make this bigger just so we can see more. Paint Rigid. And then it'll turn it all green. And with it set to rigid, you can just start painting in what you don't want to move. And I'm just going to start painting in like the entirety of the top of the head. Like starting about like here. And just fill it all in. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure that you have the areas that you don't want to move, paint it as rigid. And it's a pretty self-explanatory thing. Now we don't get weird editing. You can still edit parts that are rigid, but it seems like other parts aren't quite as affected, so that's good. Alright, so now I've covered how to do the eye effects and finish up the face and the plastic tool. And that is about all I have for this video. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video just by seeing how I can rig up this head real quick. Select the skull. Oops, not create mesh. I don't want to do that. And just like last time, I'm just going to sort of... Oh, what happened to my mouth? Let me go over to the schematic real quick, see what's going on here. Oh, mouth is not connected to the skull. Even though I feel like I totally just rigged this character and was connected just fine. I must have pressed the undo button too many times after I had done my first pose. Alright, so with the skull selected, just rotate it. And you know, you can obviously stop watching the video here. I'm not doing anything else for the rest of it. Just going to sort of give a quick example. Maybe making her perk up just a little bit. But most notably, you can have the mesh selected, and you'll have to go into the plastic tool to edit these, unfortunately, which can be a little time consuming. And I can go ahead and just sort of like make these more dangly. Sort of like they're affected by gravity. Now I'm going to go ahead and oops. Gotta go ahead and hide these two columns. And also, what you can do, even with the plastic tool selected, you can hide this visually, which helps. So you don't have to see the mesh, because it can get kind of in the way. And then we can just go ahead and press the preview button just to see a final render. Alright, not looking too bad. You'll notice, and I actually don't think I covered it when I was initially creating the mesh, that you could set it to a DPI because it will rasterize. The plastic tool will rasterize your image, which is why I don't really recommend using it too much. But if I turn the preview off, you can see that it looks really fuzzy in the viewport, and I think that's just for speed's sake. You know, before I made this, I spent a while trying to figure out how to get rid of the fuzziness, but it's not really that it's actually fuzzy. If you have its DPI set to like 300, you're probably fine, but when it will render out, you can see it crispens up pretty nicely, so not a big thing to worry about. And that pupil on the right is kind of making me mad. Alright. Good stuff. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and, you know, stick with me for the next part. And this one actually did also turn out to be pretty long, but I don't think I was beating around the bush as much as I was in the other one. I felt like I was pretty much explaining the whole time, so, you know, rigging a character is a long process. You can't make it go any faster, especially if you're explaining what you're doing as you do it. So, you know, all in all, not too bad. I wasn't planning on covering the plastic tool, but I thought, I mean, why not? Doesn't really fit in to like the next one necessarily. You might as well just cover it now and finish up the entire head. And you can also add the plastic tool to the little hair fluffies, you know. That might be a good idea. In fact, I might do that later. Maybe in the next video I'll have it rigged up as well to sort of demonstrate if I like the way it looks. Because like I said, sometimes the plastic tool causes some unnecessary trouble. And if I get weird artifacts, then it might be better to just leave it alone. But anyway, like I said, hope you liked the video. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll definitely have more for you in this series. Ciao, guys.